Hello, everyone. No? Okay. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. Before lunch, I know it's you're waiting to hit that. Hopefully, a lot of energy. So let's talk about why decentralized frontends are the future of Web3. So I'm Illia, co-founder of Near and the CEO of Pagoda. And for those who are not familiar with Near, we started with the vision of building open web, which is giving control to everyone with their assets, with their data, with their power of governance, right? And within that big vision, we started by building layer one, because in 2018, there was no clear technology which you could use to actually build something for billions of users. We have invested a lot in usability, in scalability on this. As we launched that, we invested a lot in developer experience, because as we saw more and more developers coming, they had struggled to actually build something. The tooling was very low level. There was missing a lot of components and services. And so what we call developer platform and services, we've been building that. But throughout last year, the realization came in that although there's a lot of great developers, there's missing kind of a unified platform that actually connects users and applications in one place. Right? As a developer, you build your application, you go to UCC Paris Global Paris Hackathon, you build a really cool app, and then it goes nowhere. Nobody finds it, nobody is able to use it, and then you lose interest and you move on. And so how do we get this kind of connectivity and really deliver something that can push us through to the next wave of Web3 adoption? And so what we introduced is blockchain operating system and this goal of building to 1 billion users. So blockchain operating system is really a common layer for browsing and discovering open web applications. And it's compatible with any blockchain, and I'll show what that means. So what are the problems it's solving, right? There's a set of core Web3 problems that, Web2 problems that we're solving with Web3, right? This is everything about data privacy, about user ownership, about lack of, being able to affect decisions when, Instagram decides to remove a like button. At the same time, there's more and more kind of arbitrary decisions are being made by the platforms that right now provide applications like application stores, there's no way to really argue against that because of the monopoly on distributions they have. In Web3, we have new problems, right? We have obviously really challenging onboarding problem with new users having trouble coming in, not knowing where to start. This also leads to discoverability, right? You install a wallet, you even funded it. Now what? Which applications are available? Which of them are secure? You have challenge now which chain to use, right? Which rollup, which layer one, what are those things even mean? If you're a developer yourself and you build an application, you have initial users, most of you have, only inspection of transactions on chain. You don't actually know who these users are. And if you have launching a new feature, the only thing you can do is scream into the void of Twitter and hoping people will come back. So there's no way to re-engage users and really have a relationship with them. Obviously, there's a ton of questions with compliance, and importantly, as we're building this Web3 applications, right, we still have a lot of pieces that are centralized, right? And importantly, the front ends, but also a lot of middleware is still living on a centralized server and is kind of very fragile to, domain going down, a hack that happens, like something like happened with Curve front ends. And so all of this just creates more and more challenges, which we're trying to solve with blockchain operating system. Now, how does this work? Well, it's not a one single thing, right? It's a whole layer, set of layers that really build one on top of each other. So we have layer ones on the bottom with layer twos. There is already obviously support for all the EVMs. There's actually people contributing other layer ones as well. On top of this, we have services, right? This is everything, and I'll talk more, but think of it as all the middleware that you need to really build powerful Web3 applications. We introduced a new layer called Decentralized Composable Frontends, right? So this is moving away from the idea that frontend needs to live on some server and needs to be accessed by the user, and only through that way you can have this frontend. But because we're saying that the smart contracts contains the logic, the identities, the data of the user, right? It may be living, like some of the data living on a PFS or other decentralized storages. The front end now becomes more of a medium of information, and it can also live anywhere, and it can be kind of reconstructed for the user at the time when they need to access it. So gateways is the way you actually access it, right? And it can be anything from a gateway that, application itself runs to a common gateway to even gateway that you run yourself on your Urbit device. And finally, you have onboarding, right? Solving all of these problems with how to get new users, how to get them engaged is really important. So diving into services, there's a set of really important pieces that need to come together to allow anyone to build applications. The big part is data platform, right? Right now, if you need to read data, you are hitting RPCs, you may be using some variant of an indexer, and all of them have some set of centralization, and they don't really the only way for them to be compatible is to have a standard, right? RPC have a standard, and so it doesn't matter which RPC endpoint you use. So we introduced Query API, which is a standard for how to index data. The indexing code itself lives on the blockchain, and so any service can pick it up and provide you exactly the same shape of data in exactly the same API. Meta transactions, right? Making sure that your users don't need to pay transaction fees on day one. Fast auth, being able to sign up with kind of biometrics of your device and leverage kind of that to create accounts and use meta transactions to pay for transaction fees so that user doesn't see any of the crypto complexity when they start using it. Decentralized social, and near social is an example. There's other like Lens and others as well, which all can be leveraged to build the social graph and reputation around the account information and actually leverage that now in other applications. Notifications, right? I mentioned that, like, how do you re-engage users? You should have a way to send notifications, and users should be in control which notifications they receive from each application. Search and recommendations, ability to actually index all of the data, all of the applications, and allow to search for the user. And finally, multi-chain accounts, right? Right now we have, an account on every chain. They're completely disconnected. There's no way to access them. But actually, ironically, centralized exchanges have a multi-chain account, right? You log into Coinbase and you have an account on every chain, right? That type of functionality, but accessible through self-custody and with ability to interact with any of the application on any chain, that's what we're really aiming for here. So I'll just showcase what FastAuth is. This one is already launched. So this is the ability to use a cryptography directly on your device. It uses secure enclave to generate kind of cryptography, and you use multi-party computation to do email recovery. So altogether, this combined allows to pretty much onboard users in 5 seconds in a very similar flow they're used to in Web 2. It uses passkey for the local cryptography, and it's easier than normal Web 2 because you don't need to remember password, right? It uses actually your device for that. And now, as you logged in, you have meta transactions, so you can start interacting with applications. And let's say there's some limit up to how many you can do, and then it pops you up to kind of top up your account. So at the core, what we're trying to do really is leverage, like kind of turn around this idea that right now, if you build decentralized application, right, you lose in distribution, right? You don't have the access to users. People don't actually know if this is a secure and where, like, secure application and where it is and how to find it. And instead, we want to have like a common set of applications that are accessible through any of the endpoints, and at the same time, have specific endpoints and gateways where people can access it. They're censorship resistant, they're user owned, so it doesn't matter which, you go to near.org or boss.gg, you go to quickswap.com, you get exactly the same experience and usage because it's your data and applications are all shared. And so that's what we're trying to do with blockchain operating system. So I'll show in a second how it all looks, but just to kind of finish, the idea here for developers now is that you can build once and it's available in all of these platforms, right? Including, as there more mobile support and there can be desktop application to access it. I mentioned Urbit. It's allowing to leverage this decentralization for distribution as well, right? All of these endpoints, anywhere you can have this access now is able to use it. And kind of to start with, you don't need to have any of the infrastructure overhead, right? You can just build your application, launch it, and keep going. So let me show you how this looks, just so you understand. Right, so near.org right now, everything you see is coming from blockchain. At the core, you see the social feed, which all of the posts are on blockchain. But more importantly is the front end itself, the code you look, kind of the code that powers the whole page is stored on blockchain, and you can actually inspect it, right? So, so let's say we open something more specific, like let's say a profile page. You can actually look at the profile page, how it's implemented, right? With all of the kind of references to other components that it uses. It's highly modular, and it allows to really quickly kind of compose new experiences from this. And you can fork this kind of yourself and start modifying how you want it to look, right? For example, if you want your own profile page to look differently, or you want to create a profile page for Lens, for example, profiles. As I mentioned, it works with Ethereum applications, and so to just showcase you search, so this indexes all of the applications, posts, kind of information on chain, and allows you to actually navigate to, for example, this app called EVM Components that showcases some of the EVM applications that are available here. Now, this week we launched actually partnership with ZK EVM, and so this is powered by the same technology, and everything you see is a component that is rendered from the blockchain, and it's specifically kind of a selection of applications for ZK EVM apps, right? So let's say we go to Gamma, so this actually pulled the component code from the blockchain and rendered to the user, right? So there's no kind of web server rendering. And you can open the same component on near.org, right? Again, because they just all stored on blockchain, any of the kind of entry points are able to access it. And so the idea here, right, as a developer, you build once and you're available everywhere, right? So kind of the example would be you build your application, you deploy the smart contract to Ethereum, and now you can deploy your very similar to kind of React JSX code to the blockchain. And any user can navigate to any of these places, right? Including tonight, we actually have a event with Orbit where they're going to be showcasing how to do this on Orbit and launching your gateway directly locally and have full ownership of your data. And so the user selects an app and kind of interacts with the app and Ethereum. So kind of in conclusion, the idea is like this is all live. This allows you to really build decentralized applications that are anti-fragile. It allows you to really power kind of your really multi-chain developer experience and unlock kind of this composable future, and allows to have access to all these users which are generally not accessible right now because they're all kind of slotted into a specific websites and don't even know how to discover other applications. Try it out. You can try FastOS right now with near.org sign up. And for the people who are hacking this weekend, we have some bounties as well to build on top of this. So thank you, and if there's any questions, I would love to answer.
I didn't understand exactly how the front-end code is stored. You said several times that is stored on the blockchain, but I understand blockchain so far that it's not for storage, it's for transactions.
Yeah, so I mentioned we started Near with the idea how do we build a scalable blockchain that actually can handle billions of users, and so part of the value offering of Near blockchain itself is that we can store pretty large amounts of data relatively cheaply. And so here's an example of the component source code. And actually every commit, as you kind of update the code is stored at specific block number. and you can actually navigate and see the diff, like what changed within that code. And so this actually allows you to have this permanence where as you build your application, you can reference other people's components and applications, and you can bind specific versions. So similar how you would do this with GitHub or NPM. And kind of this has this like pretty powerful connotation that you can start building off somebody else's applications and rely that they'll stay the same. And if you need to, you can update and bump the versions to the newer release.
Hi, great talk. I'm a developer, and I'm wondering if you are planning to support more syntax than JSX, because I don't really like JSX, so.
Yeah, so there's an interesting question around, there was a previous talk about the choice leading to more problems. So the benefit right now, because it's singular format, every component looks the same, and so it's really easy for people to kind of dive in, compose, fork them and modify. If you have 5 different frameworks, and now when you go and open an app and it's built in a different framework, you're like, oh shit, now I need to figure out how to deal with that, right? So we're actually working on an extended version that would allow that. But from a developer experience perspective, although I know some people like or dislike this choice itself, the lack of choice here actually leads to a better composability. And from a developer experience, we see composability here being kind of extremely valuable because literally we see people building 3 times faster with this, even for Web2 applications. All right, I guess folks are interested in having, oh.
Hello, Olga Feldmeier. Great to see you here. We know that you started actually as a NIA AI, right? So there was this component, well, it's kind of like your background, right? Can you share with us a little bit plans for the future in this area?
Sure. I mean, it's probably off topic from this talk, but so yeah, for background, I was an AI researcher before. I worked on TensorFlow. I worked on what now is powering all of the ChatGPT, Midjourney technology transformers, and we started Near AI actually to generate code from natural language. And I think within kind of the context of this talk, the interesting thing is, for people who don't like to write JSX, is there will be natural language interface. You will be able to actually talk to the computer, not just as a developer, but able to generate interfaces for specific use cases. And I think 2 talks before, there was an example of that as well. So we are moving in that direction where kind of some of the access to the blockchain will not be as guarded by, as developers as designing better UXs, but actually being able to have a more natural conversation. And there's some really cool demos around that. I mean, separately from that, I'm working with a few folks who are trying to build more kind of on-chain inference, such that you are able to run kind of AI models directly integrated into, for example, DAOs and making decisions around how DAOs should function with AI. And I think that's very interesting. So, but there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in this space, so probably for another talk. All right, I'll let people go to lunch.